Hey guys, how we doing? Well, I'll tell you what, we are definitely at the dog days of summer. That's that time of year that fish are supposed to quit biting. It's supposed to be getting harder. They're out there. You gotta find them, but what are you gonna use? So I thought I'd take a minute. I'm gonna show you my dog day of the year lures that I'm gonna use. Now, I'm not gonna get in to everything. I'm not going to get it all. I know a lot of guys, my top 5, my top 6, my top 10, whatever. We're not going to get that extensive. What I'm going to leave out is the topwater. The frog, the chuggers, anything like that. Buzz baits, all that stuff, wake baits, there are tons of them. I love fishing topwater. If you've watched any of my videos, you know, man, I'm a big topwater fisherman. But for this video, I'm not going to get into that. And the main reason I'm not is, well, I'm not going to tell you you can't go out and catch a fish at bright 12 noon, bright sunny day, 90 degrees on the topwater. It happens, I've done it. But the majority of the topwater is going to be that first hour or so in the morning, the first hour or so in the evening. And hey, there's a lot of times you ain't got time for that. You got 2, 3, 4 hours, whatever it is, you're going in the middle of the day. That's when you're going to fish. So that's the lures we're going to cover. And I've only got 3. I've got 3 lures that I'm going to use for the dog days of summer. All right. First one, worm. Everybody fishes a worm. I know everybody's fishing a worm. I don't fish a lot of worm. I do some, but I'm not a real big worm fisherman. And a lot of that's been because, well, everybody else fishes a worm. So I'll fish something a little bit different. But dog days of summer, if there is ever a time to fish a worm, this is it. And if there's ever a time to fish a big worm, this is it. 10 and 12-inch worms are what I'm going to be using now. This July, August, the heat, the dog days, I'm using a big worm. This last week or so, this is Tom Mann's jelly worm. Back in the 70s, hate to age this, but back in the 70s, Bob and I lived with the Tom Mann's jelly worm. That is what we fished consistently. The purple one, grape flavored. Yeah, now they smell like it. That smells like grapes. I ain't gonna tell you it tastes like grapes, and I'm not gonna try that. But we use these, man, all those years ago. They work just as well today as they did 50 years ago, except this is the 12-inch worm. Back then we used the smaller worms a lot. I've been using the 12-inch jelly worm. I've been taking some decent fish with it over the last week or so. Any type of 10, 12-inch worm is going to work, whether it's a stick worm like this, whether it's going to have the wavy tail on it, whatever. I'm going to fish a 10 or 12-inch worm a lot this time of year. That's the worm that does a good job for me. That's the worm that works really well when it's hot like this. Number 2. It's going to be a jig. I'm going to fish a jig. I'm going to fish it a lot. I fish it all year, but especially now. And I'm going to fish it usually in a blue-black, but that's a lot of times because the water out there has gotten so dingy, got algae and everything else going like that. You know, I'm in Nebraska. We don't have a lot of clear water. So the blue-black color is what I like. Now, there are a lot of different jigs out there. There's football head, swim jigs, arky. There's all kinds of jigs. I don't get real picky about I use one. As you can see, it's kind of a pointed head. It's not the good football head that's going to stand up. I do a lot of swimming it back. I'm working edges of vegetation and stuff, so I'm going to swim this thing back sometimes. Yeah, I want it to sit on the bottom. You know, the football head's going to sit in the bottom and sit up to bounce it. This isn't quite going to work that way, but guess what? I catch fish with it anyway. So I don't have 5 different rods with 5 different jigs all ready to go. I can't do that. I got a jig rod, period. So I'm going to go with kind of what I call a universal jig. It works for about everything. Now, one thing I do different, I buy mine. These have an extra wide gap hook. Instead of the round bend, I like extra wide gap. Seems like once you get a hold of a fish, you're not going to lose him. So that's the only difference I do when it comes to a jig. And after that, it's going to be a crankbait, but not just one. There are so many different ways to be fishing crankbaits on these hot days. First off, we're going to have a lot of vegetation. We're going to have if it's lily pads or whatever vegetation is, we're going to have a lot of that in some places. And the vegetation, I mean, we always fish it. It gives you cover. It's a hiding place for the bass. It gives them shade for the sun and all that. But in the summer, when it's hot like this, the water temperatures are running in the low 80s or mid 80s or above that, depending where you're at in the country. Vegetation produces oxygen. And that's what these fish are looking for. This time of year, it's cooler water. It's oxygen. They need those two things to go along with what they're going to eat. So it doesn't mean we always have to go real deep to find a fish. Here's a crankbait, just as off the Mega by Mega Bass, this one I painted. It's only going to go about 2 or 3 feet deep. And to be honest with you, you never know what you might catch with one of these, because a while back, right over there, I hooked a fish. I didn't quite hook him right, but I hooked him anyway. There we go. Oh, I had it. Still got it. Oh man, still got it. Where's the net? Let's turn that motor all the way around. Come on, baby. Yeah, I'm hooked in his tail. But I got him. Woo. All right, guys, there he is. And I caught him by the tail, which makes it real interesting to get him in. Hooked him. I'll show you what I hooked him on. Let me get him back in the lake here. All right, there's what I took him on. Not that I'm claiming that'll catch catfish, but if you can hook one in the tail, might work. Well, as you can see, you don't always have to hook them by the mouth in order to catch them. You can get it one way or the other. But that's going to work shallow. It's going to stay in close to that vegetation where there's a lot of oxygen, where there's some cover for them, and where there's some shade. So that works good. If we're not moving out from that, let's move out to something about mid-range. Let's move out a little deeper. We're going to go 4 or 5 feet deep. Again, it still works out on the edge of that vegetation. It can work on some points. It can work on some drop-offs. And then finally, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to get deeper. We're going to go down here. In a situation like this, we're going to go down here 10 or 12 feet. And when I'm looking at something like this, I'm looking at down at 15 or 16 feet. Now, I realize for some guys around the country, 16 feet, you're saying, that ain't deep. We go down there 30, 40, 50 feet. That's fine. Here in Nebraska, our lakes are maybe 20, 22, 23 feet total depth. That's it. That's deep as we're going to get. So if I'm fishing 15 or 16, I'm fishing deep. So while the crankbait may be my third lure to go along with the worm and the jig, I'm really still going to use shallow, mid-range, and deep diver crankbaits, because there's a place for every one of them. Especially that vegetation on the side. The water's not going to be real deep, but there's still going to be fish there. Not every fish goes deep, but I do want to be able to go after them too, so that's why I'm going to use the deep diver. All kinds of stuff you can use. I limit myself to 3. This time of year, I'm almost exclusively throwing the jig, the crankbait, or that real big worm, that 10, 12 inch worm. Those 3 are usually what get me through the dog days of summer. Hey, thanks for sticking with me. Subscribe to the channel if you would. Hope to see you again real soon.